Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Slingers. Today we've got Michael Bancroft,
Hello,
my favorite Australian,
all the way from down under.
the wonder from down under. What if we did the whole interview with me doing that? No, that'd be terrible.
Oh, the conversations often do turn to Australia. People are very interested in what goes on down here.
Yeah, it's an interesting place for sure. I remember when I learned about the Emu Wars, I was just fascinated.
The infamous Emu Wars, yes.
Yes. So this is Slingers, a place where we talk about writing comics. I
Mhm.
read your book just a few weeks ago, and it was brilliant, man. It was just awesome. It sucked me in.
Thank you.
Um, and it's really like that first issue is just really a whole lot of world building. You haven't really done a whole lot with
Yes.
the characters yet,
Yeah.
and and that's what was really fascinating to me is that I got sucked in because of the world building. It wasn't the character arc, which is usually what sucks in people. That's usually the hook of a story.
hmm
But with you create this fascinating world, and I'm interested to
Yeah.
learn more.
Well, I've got lots to say about it.
So let's start off with because every story starts with an idea. So where did the idea come from?
Well, you saw it's like there's obviously some link in here with dreams, and it came from a dream. I was like I was real big on lucid dreaming for a very, very long time, and I always just sort of got uh, I just sort of like it would be really cool to have a hold on a sec. I think I'm on the wrong microphone here. Don't know what's going on. Sorry, apologize.
Oh, you're good.
Uh,
Let's say hi to the chat real quick. Black Rose, B Rose, what's going on, B Rose?
Sorry, just one sec. I apologize. I
No, you're fine,
apologize.
man. You're good.
I'm a total pro at this. For some reason, my
It's fine. We were just talking about that, right? We're just total boomers with this stuff still.
I know. I promise you, I was a boomer, but I don't know. My there it is. Okay, we got it.
Awesome.
What is going on with my technology lately? Yes. So I apologize. I was yeah, always a big lucid dreamer, which is when you know you're awake, when you know you're dreaming
Right.
in a dream. I thought, oh, it's such a cool experience to have, and it was a big part of my life. While it was, I was really into it, and I would have these really crazy dreams. And I would just, keep them in my back pocket and think one day I'm gonna put this into a story. And then eventually, I
Man.
think I hit like in my 30s, and I was like, if I'm ever gonna write that story, I, uh, I think I think it's time. So that's how it started.
That's awesome. Is Melanie your wife?
Yes,
Yeah, she
yes,
says
my
it's still not
quality
working.
control. Like I don't know what else to do. That's I've got the right mic sitting now, so that's the best I can do.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It works.
You can hear me.
I can hear you. Yeah. Well, cool. So once you had this idea about lucid dreaming, um, how did you how'd you put that into a book form? Like, what was your next step?
Well, the first step was to start writing. So, my wife was going on a trip to France. She's French, to go to a wedding, and so I was alone for 2 or 3 weeks or something. I thought, all right, I'm going to start this thing. So I just started writing. Avid reader my whole life. Novels are still my favorite thing.
Nice.
Piece like way to consume entertainment. I grew up on comic books as well, but yeah, I always wanted to write novels. So I thought maybe I'll write a novel. I don't know. We'll see how we go. So I just started writing, and probably wrote about 10 or so chapters, and then I paused and went back and read it. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. Because I'd done some creative writing in school, but and I was always a student of it. Studied the masters and read all the classics and everything, and I'd kept up with reading the whole time. So I thought, sure, I can do this. And I'd read some really bad books too. It's funny how what's bad when you're a
Right.
reader, but when you want to sit down and write, it's a completely different ballgame. So I was like, oh, this all sucks. All right, well, I'll just power through. So I kept going and going, and I would, do it on my lunch break at work. I would, any spare moment, I'd be writing this story, trying to get it down, get it out, and it was going nowhere. It was terrible. So I put that on hold, probably after too long, and then I thought I'm gonna actually learn how to write. So I spent the next couple of years just devouring anything I could about actual learning how to, craft a narrative and characters and world building and structure and all that sort of stuff. And I was still writing at the same time. And it was about a solid 4 or 5 years of learning and writing,
Wow.
and just for myself. I wasn't showing anyone. I felt like I was a pretty good judge of whether it was decent or not.
Right.
But eventually, I just sort of hit a brick wall, and I think it was the kind of story I was trying to write. I was trying to write this big, sweeping, epic thing, and I just didn't think I was there yet. In hindsight, you probably should start small,
Right.
short stories, novellas, stuff like that. And but I just this was the story I wanted to tell. This was my story. So happenstance, I was in a supermarket in France, and I was in this. I remember this vividly because I was in the shampoo aisle, next to all the toiletries, and there were these French bande dessinée graphic novels. I had never seen
Huh.
these before, and I'd been reading and collecting American comic books since I was 12, and I was blown away. I was like, what is this? What, I've never seen this before.
Right.
And from the moment I opened it, I saw my own story on the page like that. And
Wow.
for the first time ever, I started rethinking my story as a visual story. And because I've done all this work, everything just clicked into place.
Nice.
And it's been, you know, go, 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 go since then.
Awesome. Well, going back to when you started writing, was there like a story structure that you used that you gravitated towards? Was it like a 3 act structure, save the cat?
Yeah, I mean, I looked into all of that. 3 act structures. I like how people who kind of teach writing have their own version of 3 act structure. So I like
Yeah.
this try. I've got the 7 act structure. I've got the and I think
Yeah.
manga does the 4 act structure and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I mean, I was I try not to get too bogged down, but I think starting with the 3 act structure is obviously a good fundamental. You go the kind of story I was writing fit in really well with the hero's journey and all that sort of stuff. So I was trying to, pull in all of that stuff
Right.
into what I was doing just to give it some structure, just to give it a base that I could work from. And I fell into every pit a beginning writer can fall into, everything, and I would write myself into dead ends, and I would have long, meandering, pointless scenes that meant
Right.
nothing and all the stuff. Terrible dialogue. But eventually, over the years, I think I figured out my way through all that. And now I'm really confident in where the story is and where it's headed and everything.
Nice. And so through all that research, did you develop your own like structure, like something that works for you?
I think I landed. I can't remember it exactly, but I landed on. I remember. I can't remember who it is, but someone had a really cool 7 act structure that just fit perfectly with my book. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going with here. And so originally, when I thought, okay, I'm doing a graphic novel, but how do you make graphic novels? This was way back. This was in like 2015. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any following. Obviously, I can't pay anyone to help me make this. I got to do it all
Right.
myself. So I thought, well, what do people do when they're just starting out? And I went online and I looked. Oh, they all go onto Webtoon. They all go onto web comics and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So that's what I thought. Okay, well, I'll just start, and it'll be like an episodic thing. I'll put out, the equivalent of 1 to 2 pages every week or so. And that's what I started to do. So I never really sort of in hindsight, probably a bad idea. I never really thought about, all right, write the story so that you can break it into single issues and then blocks of 3 and blocks of 6, which I think is what Kirkman did in Walking Dead, and it ended up working out brilliantly for him.
Yeah.
I didn't really do that. In hindsight, I probably should have, but still, the greatest story that I've got, I think, is amazing, and I think when eventually we get past the sort of more world building stage and we sort of developing the characters, and then we start understanding what's happening a bit more in the plot, people are going to really dig it. It's just getting there is the is the hard part.
Right. For me, the beginning is always the hardest part. Like, what's that first step you take
Hmm.
to pull the audience in, to draw them into the
Yep,
story?
the hook. Yeah.
Right. So that they can stay consistently with you, so that when you get to the good stuff, they're there,
Yes.
Um,
And then it means something.
right. Yeah. So what was your process like? Like, how many times did you rewrite that beginning to get it right, or
Oh,
did it happen like right
I, I,
away?
I didn't even know if I could count how many times I started the beginning. But it was interesting because um, what I ended up doing in the end uh, is I I built the world out. I wrote the great timeline of the history of the story I was telling. And so it was all there, laid out like this gigantic historical timeline. And from that, I was able to just say, okay, well, if I'm going to tell this, I know the story arc that I want to tell with my main character. She comes in here. That's her place in history. So where do I start? Do I start at her birth? Do I start before it? Whatever. No, I decided to start at like a critical time in her life, and then um, kind of go from there. But the cool thing is, if you've got this grand history, you can also pull in all sorts of other stuff, which is exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I actually ended up starting the book 6,000 years prior with a seemingly unrelated incident, but all threads point in one direction in my story, so seemingly unrelated at the moment.
Yeah, and I loved how you also in-capped it with that type of time travel too. Like, we go into the past again the second time, like towards
Hmm.
the end.
Yep.
And again, it seems unrelated, but I'm sure it's all, like you said, threaded together, and that brings up all these questions, like what's going to happen next? Where's the story going? Was that all planned out when you put the story together?
Yes, everything has to be planned out because essentially the kind of story I'm telling is so I've constructed this gigantic puzzle. And then what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just give the reader one piece at a time. And hopefully those pieces are intriguing enough to hook them in and make them think, oh, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting puzzle once it's all
Right.
complete. But um, there's not enough pieces yet, and they're not connected yet. So the reader is like, "Oh, how do these two connect?" And then, but I'm like going to be dropping new pieces along the way, and then people will hopefully want to figure out how the whole thing works. So yes, I had to have the whole thing already finished essentially, and
Yeah.
understood and everything. And that's not to say I have every single line of dialogue down. I do that sort of on the as I work with my art and everything like that. But the actual story, it's yeah, it's all worked out.
So how far ahead are you? Do you have stuff planned out? Is it like 10 issues, 12 issues? Like, what's your?
Well, the current main arc. So the book that you started with, Waking Dream, the first book.
Yeah.
Now we're going into Painted Death. That's the second book in that main arc. That's going to be 6 books all up.
Okay.
And that will complete the kind of story of Ella Forsyth, the main character. That's her story.
Okay.
There are, because I've built this world out, there are other avenues, other characters that she meets in her story that you can also tell stories about that I think are interesting and fun and will build the world and people will be interested in. So we'll be doing that as well. But
Nice.
yeah, that's all sorted. And I have to do that, like I said, because I need to drop kind of Easter eggs and hints and clues. You said this first book is a lot of world building. It's also a lot of foreshadowing.
Mm.
It is like almost, not every, almost every line of dialogue in that first book is foreshadowing something. And as a reader of the first book, you can't really know that because you don't know what's coming, but I know what's
Right.
coming.
Right.
So when you read the second book, hopefully, you'll be able to say, "Oh yes, he said that in the first one. That's what that was talk. I just thought that was dialogue. No, I'm
Right.
actually saying." So there's like all that sort of stuff that you can only do if you know the future. And I have a editor that I work with, Joe Fulton, and I make sure he knows what's coming so that he can help me um, with planning all those setups and payoffs. Next book, 2 books back, so it's all like that. And because to me, whenever I read a book and it goes like that, I love it. And
Yeah.
I want to write a book that's like that. I want to write a book that it makes the story so much richer. It feels so much more real when, you know, it, when the story was always there. And it's always a disappointment, especially in the kind of story that I'm reading, a sort of a mystery thriller, when you get the feeling like, oh, they're just making this up as they go along.
Right.
And that's always a big letdown.
Yeah.
So I want to avoid that completely.
Just real quick, I want to say hi to Phantasmagorical
Hello, Fanta.
and Gary.
Now, Gary G.
Gary
Look at all
G.
these fantastic,
Awesome.
supportive people.
Yes, thank you for stopping by. Yeah, hear you talking about this kind of reminds me of the show Lost. The show Lost came out and they built up this crazy world in this island and gave you all these questions to start out with.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I've often said I employ the same storytelling techniques. Now, I loved Lost originally. I didn't really go to the end because I felt I got the feeling like they were just making it up as they went along, which is a real shame. But I love the setup. I love that kind of storytelling. It really hooks me in, and it is very popular. There's so many shows now that do the same. And I haven't seen that many. Or maybe I just haven't read them, that many comics that try to do the same thing, and maybe that's just the nature of comic books. But there's a new show From that I've been getting into, which employs the same. It's like mystery box style.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it. I think the mystery is the whole fun of it. Coming up with theories. It's a lot of interaction between the writer and the audience. As a writer, you are trying to give them clues so they can figure it out, and also chuck in a few red herrings to throw them off the scent.
Right.
And it's all super fun. And even if the story is serious and dark or scary or whatever, that's where the entertainment comes in for me. So yeah, that was definitely the sort of story that I wanted to write.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can see that. Because I felt that way. I was reading your book and I was like, that first scene where you were like, what, 6,000 years in the past? Like, who are these people? Who's that guy in that robe?
Who are they?
Yeah, like what's going on here? How does this tie into
connect?
What's happening now?
Yeah, and people bought the book, and they really were looking for more of a American superhero type story, pretty straightforward and stuff, and they didn't like it at all because it's nothing like that. It's much more influenced by well, like we said, Lost and things like that, The Matrix, European comic book style, and all that sort of stuff. So they were like, well, this has nothing to do with anything else. It's like, well, it looks that way, but there is, and I know that I have done it well because I originally, when I started upload, like I said, I uploaded this to Webtoon, and I got a little bit into the second book, and there were readers who were reading it as a serialized, episodic upload, who really figured out what was happening. Really far into the story just by what I'm giving them. They had what you've read plus a little bit extra, and they were sending me emails like, I think this is happening, and I'm like, what the hell? How'd you figure this all out?
Awesome though.
I had put in the clues, and that's the way I want it to end.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give you a big surprise and oh my God, I can't believe it did that. When the Lucent ends, and you close the last page, I want the reader to feel incredibly satisfied. That they have, the story they've been on was entertaining and satisfying, and everything lined up and worked the way it wanted. I'm not necessarily looking for the like, oh my God, that was so surprising. I never saw that coming. Although I do have major twists in there.
Right.
I'm hoping some readers, if they stop and pause and think through all the clues I'm giving them, will be able to figure it out themselves. I had the same experience with Harry Potter. I don't know if you've read the Harry Potter books,
Yeah.
but Rowling set up a big thing with a character that like he's a big betrayer at the end of the second last book, and everyone was going, I can't believe he betrayed him like that. And then my brother said, no, 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 he did that on purpose. Like, what are you talking about? I reread the entire book just based on what he said.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it was in there the whole time. She put in all these seemingly insignificant clues. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's so obvious now. It's in there. It's only this way. So I was 100% sure that
Right.
it was like a double act thing. And oh behold, I was right. And that's how I want the Lucent to be as well. If you are eagle-eyed, if you really like go just under the surface layer and there's many levels to it, yeah, you should be able to um figure it all out. So
That's
that's the
awesome.
way I'm structuring it.
Yeah. No, I love the book. It. I think I told you my message to you that it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Matrix. It's almost like
Yes.
there's this other bigger world that.
Yeah, heavily influenced by the Matrix. So as I said, when I was really into lucid dreaming, I was really into it. Every night I was like, living this crazy fantasy world. So when I saw the Matrix, I was like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
This is um this is what happens when you lucid dream. You are in the world. It looks like your world, but you can fly and you can fight and you can do all sorts of crazy stuff. So, and I said to you, I'd always had this idea that I wanted to turn this thing into a story, but I never knew how. When I saw
Yeah.
The Matrix, I thought they did it. That's great. I like that thing. Now, obviously, I don't want to do that, but I was inspired that they did it, that they were able
Right.
to turn this kind of premise into a story. So that's when I was like, all right, I gotta get going. So yeah, it would be impossible to deny the influence that the Matrix had on the Lucent. It's and I think visually there's a lot of homage going on there.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, I see it. Especially that scene where she's on the rooftop reminds me a
Hmm.
lot of Neo, Matrix.
I was just on a rooftop last night. It was like it was packed. I've never been up to this rooftop before, and it was like level 6. It's like there was a level 6. I went up there. I was like, oh, this is the Matrix. It looked exactly like the Matrix, with all the
That's cool.
buildings around me
Right.
and the Matrix was filmed in Australia. It wasn't filmed in my city, but
Oh, cool.
it did look very much like it.
Nice. Well, no, I definitely see the inspiration there. So, how long
Yeah.
does it take you to write an issue when you sit down and write? Do you have a writing schedule?
Um, no, no, I don't really. It took me a very, very long time to write the first book, years, because I was, getting to it.
Right.
Second book, even though it's a much longer book, it took me probably about 6 months to a year to really kind of hammer it down with the editor. Third book, it just all came out.
Nice.
It was just like, okay, everything's in place now. The wheels are in motion. I've laid all the cards on the table, and now it's just going to play out to the end. So it's a very because I put in all those years of world building and character building and motivations and kind of the system, the way the actual all the powers work and everything, really
Right.
just comes out quite easily.
Nice.
That isn't to say, but I'm constantly kind of turning the wheels. Even in this book, I kind of write on the fly. When I'd drawn out, so many pages that were already drawn and everything. and I was rereading the story as you do, and I just thought this needs a scene in here. This needs a break. We're going
Right.
through the plot. I need a kind of a subplot here. I need to kind of put a little point in here. And so I was like, okay. I knew that needed to be there, so I just put in 2 blank pages, and I was like, all right, we'll see where when the inspiration strikes. And lo and behold, a week later, I'm just wherever I am. I'm walking in the shower, wherever I was like,
Right.
that's it. That's what it needs. And those characters, they get to be in the story again, whereas before they were gonna have to wait. And there's so it happens like that. So I don't really like sit down and say, okay, today's the day I'm gonna write. The cool thing about doing the comic book as opposed to a novel is the bulk of the time is spent drawing.
Yeah.
So the writing element, you're actually always trying to shave down words in a comic.
Right.
Usually I start by writing way too much. I flood the page, and then it's like, what can I lose? What can I trim off?
Gotcha.
So it's never a problem of I haven't written enough. It's more of
Mhm.
I've written too much, and I gotta I gotta pull it back because it is a visual medium.
Right. And since you do both the artwork and the writing, are there certain days where you're just like, today, I've got this idea? You had one of those shower moments where you're like, I've got
Hmm.
this idea, so I'm going to go sit down and write. But at the
Yep.
same time, you're like on a schedule to finish your artwork.
No, if I get the
Just,
inspiration to write, that becomes first because
okay.
that's the thing. Like, and
Right. Yeah.
that sort of stuff, the writing can come and go. And I've had those moments where I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, but I was too busy. I was at work. I was doing something else, and then it just I'll remember that, and then I didn't. I didn't
Yeah.
write it down. I was like, oh, that's lost the time. Maybe it was crap, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was like some of my best stuff, and now it's gone. So yeah, but usually it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
If I got an idea, oh, okay, you can just jot it down. And because I'm kind of the creator, the architect, it really doesn't have to be much. I'll jot down dot points, and
Okay.
that's enough to remind me, and then I can come back because I rewrite right up until after the lettering stage. I'm
Okay.
rewriting as I'm lettering, so because you never quite know until it's there on the screen, um, exactly what it's going to need.
Right. How did you find your editor, and what were you looking for in an editor?
I wasn't looking for an editor, but thank God he found me. I do a YouTube show, and I was hanging out on Art T Bear, a famous artist and inker, his channel, and I met this guy, and he was just a lot of fun. And I said, I'm streaming after this. Do you want to come over and hang out? And he was like, sure. He came over, and we just hit it off, fast friends. And we just got to chatting about my story. He was really intrigued by it, and he said, "Oh, that sounds cool." And he said, I do editing and stuff like that. So I was a bit hesitant because I'm like, well, it's already kind of done, you know. So I hadn't worked with anyone, no
Yeah.
one. I was doing everything at that point too, even the lettering. I was kind of hesitant, and then I said, screw it, I'll show it to him. He said, look, there's no pressure here. If it's just a case of I could say, oh, you could tidy this up here, or you could, I could even just check grammar if that's what you want. So I
Right.
sent it to him, and we just got to talking, and he was really just so easy to work with, and everything that he was saying, it's like, we could make this part, even though it's drawn and done, we could make this so much better if just we do this, this, that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That would be so much better. So we kind of like tentatively, did a bit of that. And then I was like, Joe, do you want to edit this book? I mean, it might put me back a little bit because I'm going to have to redo stuff. But the cool thing is, he's a comic book guy as well. So he understands the language of comics, but he also understands the art. So he was able to even do art edits.
Oh,
And that
nice.
was a big deal because even though I've gotten better as an artist, I wanted there to be at least be some level of synchronicity between the issues. And it would have been a real kind of jump in art, but if Joe hadn't helped me with that. But story and everything, yeah, he uh, he he became invaluable, and he made me see that no, you can't do this by yourself, especially a story like this. Because if you're talking about these grand, this big mystery puzzle thing, you can see everything. So you're biased. You think you're giving clues or you're holding things back, but you can't really see it because you know in your
Right.
head what that means. The reader doesn't know that.
It's very true.
So he really became invaluable because he comes at it from a reader's perspective. And he says, and because he knows everything's happening as well, he's like, they're not going to get that, or that's too much, or not enough. So yeah, he's become absolutely invaluable.
That's awesome. Genuine Comics. Greetings, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Well, that's awesome, man. Is there anything about script writing that scares you or that you find difficult?
Oh, I find it all difficult. It's always worrying, and you always worry, oh, is this any good? Or it's all difficult. But I've always felt like if you really put the effort in and you be really honest with yourself, really brutally honest, and you're willing to start again and try again, you usually can figure things out. Um, it's daunting. I mean, it's been a while since I've been there, where like I have no idea where this story is going. What do I do here with this? Where is this plot going? How do I make this happen? All this sort of stuff. It's been a while since I've been there, but yeah, that was hard to get through. But um, stuck with the plan. I always found out that if ever I got stuck, I don't know how to connect these two parts of the world together. I got stuck because of my own fault.
Mm.
And all I had to do was figure out what I did wrong. And almost always, without fail, what I did wrong is I didn't fully understand the motivations of the characters. I hadn't fully fleshed that out. Because if the characters are fully realized people with their own individual goals and histories and lives and wants and needs, then it will figure itself out naturally, just like it does in real life. And at that point, as a writer, you're kind of just like a puppet master pulling the strings of the events
Right.
of what happens, and then the characters will react to those events as they would, given their motivations, given who they are as people, their personalities and everything. And once I'd figured that out, it became so much easier. Like, oh, okay, so all I really need to do is really know this character down to the bone, and then it will work out. And there were a couple of instances where in the first book and then leading into the second book, we were like, okay, well, why would he do that? And I was like, oh, damn, I'm really stuck here. But it was just, like I said, go back to basics, fundamentals. I go, okay, so what do this group of characters want? And we were able to completely work it out in a way that was so much better than what it originally was, because it all makes sense, and and it's just a better narrative. So, yeah, that's it's all hard, but if you put in the work, get there.
So, writer's block, is it real or is it fake?
Well, it can be real for those reasons that I've outlined, because you haven't really done the groundwork that you needed. So if writer's block is, I don't know what's happening next, there's that. But if it's pure just, I don't know what to write a story about, I haven't really run into that, because I really have one story. This is my story. I've put everything into this one story. I'm going to make it as good as I possibly can. There's writers out there who they have, 10, 15 different stories on the go, and then they're always looking for their next one. And sometimes they run into, they don't know what to. They've already written their big story. Now they don't know what to write next. I could see that. I don't know. I'm not there yet. Hopefully, I never get there, but people say it is.
Genuine Comics says, so true. The characters, they'll write the story for you.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah, what you were saying kind of reminds me of Sorkin's Altar. I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Aaron Sorkin, the writer, he says, I worship at the altar of intention and obstacle. So like
Yeah,
the characters have an intention, and you just throw an obstacle at them,
that's it.
and
That's the kind of puppet master element.
right, and that's story. That's what story is:
Yeah,
intention,
yeah.
and obstacle. Cool. Wow, my mind just went blank.
There you go. You got
Yeah,
streamer's block.
yeah, there you go. Streamer's block. No, yeah, for me, like when I think of writer's block, it's like what you said. That idea hasn't finished baking yet, so you're not sure where to go, and that's to me that's what writer's block is. Like
Mhm.
you just need to think it through.
Yeah, yeah. Just know the characters inside and out, and what they want, where they're going, and it will figure it out. But there's been things that I had. Okay, well, I set up this world, I set up this narrative, I set up this character, whatever, and then I learned something else about storytelling that I hadn't articulated yet. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that character is now, just because of how I've made them, they're a bit too passive, and they need to start taking a bit more control, just so that it's interesting for the reader. That
Right.
sort of stuff pops up, and now you're like, all right, well, I can't make them change who they are. They are who they are. So now, as the writer, you have to think of interesting new ways to force them to act. Take away that choice, and that's the writer's job. So yeah, those little roadblocks are much smaller, and as long as you've written a coherent story, you've made a coherent world where there's logic, that's self-contained, it should all work out. Fingers
Right.
crossed.
What do you feel is missing in comics today? Like, especially in the independent realm, as far as the writing goes. Like, what do you feel is?
Well, number one thing would be editors, and I
Yeah.
feel like, from what I've read, because what happens in the indie sphere is a lot of times you've got an artist who wants to write a book, but they've
Right.
never written a comic book before, and a lot of times this is their first ever comic they've written. Even like just like me, if I had to put out that first story that I made years back and put it into, I mean, it would have been an absolute joke, a disaster. Even after so many years of reworking the story and everything, what I put out originally was nowhere near as polished as what I've got out now after I worked with an editor. So there's that. Um, there's also just there's a lot of derivative stories, which can be great on their own. That reminds me of that. It's a really cool story. It's fun, and that's great.
Right.
Um, I think people are at their best, and I don't know if anyone really talks about, oh yes, that book. It was so much like, it was a masterpiece, and it was so much like this other thing,
Right.
that it was basically just the same sort of thing. So there's a lot of that goes on as well. Um, yeah, really, it just comes down to, you know, writing is a craft, and
Mm-hmm.
I learned that the hard way. It's a skill that is learned, and there's a sort of an understanding of language that is learned only through writing and reading and
Right.
doing it and practicing. So, there's also that element of it, that some people should write. Some people probably shouldn't, because they just don't have the knack for it.
Right.
Surely they could write a story. Is it going to be great? Probably. That's the same in art as well. You can learn to draw. Some people just have that talent. And if they develop that skill, then they become masters. Um, yeah, and this I said it earlier. If in hindsight, if I knew I was going to get into kind of crowdfunding actual physical books, I probably would have made my story slightly different,
Yeah.
um, for the format. But it is what it is. So I have to cop those criticisms myself, in that the way the story's written. it would be better if it was just one. You would get it in one big thick book.
Right.
That's an impossibility for me, but that's a criticism that I have to accept, and because it's true, and go with that. So, uh, but I'm seeing a lot of people learning, um, and that's a good thing. Um, Another thing is a lot of people in the industry. I don't know why they don't want to take any kind of critique, and that's weird and
Yeah.
strange. Um, yeah, I know it's very weird to be in the kind of indie sphere where you're kind of we're all brawling in the dirt down here. We're not up in the ivory towers,
Right.
um, just trying to make cool stuff. But it's never going to be perfect. So take some criticism, learn from it, make it better.
Right.
There's tons of things we could all be doing a little bit better, every single one of us.
Right. That's so true. Well, let's look at your book real quick here. This awesome book, I highly recommend.
Wait till
Lucent
you see
into
the
Death.
second one.
I'm excited, man. I really am. I'm anxious to read it.
Well, and the second one as well. A lot of these sort of, I mean, I call them subplots. They're sort of like parallel. Everything's on parallel tracks, even though
Hmm.
those tracks seem to be at the moment quite far away. They're not actually parallel. They will converge, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more of that in the second book. It's a much longer book. It's 100 pages, so there's a lot more meat on the bone. And I am working really hard with Joe to make sure that um, at least some of the questions that were raised in the first one will be you won't get the whole answer, but you'll get a satisfactory morsel so
Right.
that you feel like, okay, I have a much better idea of what this world is that Ella is kind of tumbling up into
Hmm.
here on the cover.
Yeah, like that character that you have in the caves, the yellow robes. That guy is really
Mm,
interesting to me. And at the end,
yes, he
the
is.
the fire guy, like who's that? What's that about?
What's that
Um,
about? Why does Ella have a similar fiery thing on her right now? What is this? What is
yeah,
this all? How does it all connect?
I see all the little flame flicks around her. Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. So we
And in
got
Painted Death, we're introduced to two new characters,
okay,
mysterious characters. When you first see them, you don't really get to see their faces, um, and you don't really know how they slot in. But once they are there, that's everyone. Every piece is on the board at that point, and now we play the game.
right. That's awesome. Oh yeah, you got a Lucent fan art contest
Yep.
going on right now. That goes until
I
November
think we've got
1st.
3 weeks left, so I'm going to start really pushing that because I think we've only had 5 or 6 or 5 entries, including my son's, and he's six.
Okay.
So, but I know a lot of people are working on this. I gave everyone 3 months or so because I know how schedules can be when you're an
Right.
artist. Um, so yeah, hopefully we'll get some really nice pieces in there because I would love if we got some pieces that are good enough to turn into trading cards to
Oh,
send out to
cool. That's a
people.
cool idea. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So you win some cash and you get your art on a trading card. Um, Win-win.
Yeah. All right. Characters. Okay, so his name's Olam. Is that the same character from the beginning of the book?
Hmm.
Okay.
So an interesting thing I decided to try because why not? It's a comic. We can like it comes in installments. Is at the beginning of every book we get to see this character, this mysterious cloaked man,
Hmm.
where he is sort of throughout time at interesting moments in time. So, in the first book, they refer to him as the Stone Man or the Olam. In this book, his name is Utnapishtim, and I think it's 1300 or 1700 years after Waking Dream. So I allude in that first book. It says something like, he lived among our ancestors. He's been here for a long time. So there's that allusion to this guy might be immortal. And
Yeah.
here in the second book, straight away, first page, it's cemented. Yeah, this guy has a unusually long lifespan. So hopefully
Interesting.
that will hopefully that will inspire some thinking
Yeah.
among the readers. Like, well, okay, if he is immortal, where is he in the modern day present timeline? Where is
Right.
he then? So yeah, hopefully, even though these these parts of the story seem like they're disconnected from the main, present day timeline. I mean, hopefully it's enough to think, well, okay, so if this is here and I spend 10 pages on it at the start of the story,
Right.
obviously it must mean something,
Yeah.
thematically, metaphorically, um, and or in many other ways. So yeah,
Right.
hopefully people will start to come up with their own theories.
And is he based on on anything in real life?
Yes, almost all of the historical, actually, I say almost, no, I think all of the historical characters in my story are based on either real people that really lived or, you know, legend, religious, whatever, historically mythological people.
Okay.
So the Olam refers to it's like an ancient Hebrew word. It relates to well, I don't want to get too far into it because it could show a little bit of stuff. But the I can tell you Utnapishtim is a character from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which
Hmm.
is our oldest surviving story. So that's a character who is akin to Noah in the Bible, but it
Okay.
predates the Bible. And yeah, in the Epic of Gilgamesh as well, he's the one who survives this great flood and has immortality. So that's how that all lines up. Even Isham over there on the right, the fire guy,
Yeah.
uh, that is based off an actual, I believe it's Sumerian deity.
Okay.
Uh, and the guy he visits in that sort of sequence, that memory dreamy sequence at the end there, Artemis, also a real historical person as well. So for anyone who's either historically minded or just really dogged, and you can actually go and find these people and research them and maybe try and figure out
Yeah.
why I picked them out of all people in history to be in this story,
Yeah.
and maybe kind of try and because it's more pieces to the puzzle there.
Awesome. Yeah, I kind of got the feeling when I read the book that some of these characters were based on religious figures or something
Yeah,
or legends.
yeah, because the premise is, and without spoiling too much, but the basic premise is, so we establish in the first book, all right, there's these people, some of them have some very strange abilities, and you would say enhanced abilities. We saw a guy, that you see him right there, manipulating water.
Right.
We saw a guy, jumping really high and a lot of strength and speed and all this sort of stuff. So there's something going on there. It has something to do with dreams. I've alluded to that as well. And um, so there's this sort of secret power, knowledge, something that is you can kind of tap into through your dreams somehow. All right, so that's the kind of baseline. That's the premise we're working with. Well, how would that have played out over time throughout history? And they're only mentioned once or twice in Waking Dream, but they're colloquially among the people who know called the Order, is like a secret society,
Okay.
and we meet one of their figureheads in the Le Maréchal at the start. You know, that sequence where they're
The guy who
uh,
kills Ella's father.
exactly.
Yeah.
So he's one of them,
Okay.
and you know, we I like the idea that you can read this story and this could actually be happening. But you and I, we just don't know about it because it's being kept from
Right.
us. It's being kept from civilization, society. It's a secret. They keep this stuff secret.
Yeah.
So I love that idea, and that's exactly how I've set up the story. So yeah, well, if this power exists, if this secret knowledge exists, certainly it would be powerful. Be It would behoove a group of people to sort of try and hoard that for themselves
Right.
and control it and all that sort of stuff. So that's sort of where the story is headed, and we're going to find out a lot more about them and all that in Painted Death. And Ella is just she's kind of like us in that the way that you have a
Yeah.
character that is learning about it all herself for the first time,
Yeah.
at the same time that we, the audience, are as well. I kind of have, I like the idea of likening it a bit to Star Wars in that, there's supposedly this great big universe of history, Jedi and powers and everything, but Luke Skywalker knows none of that.
Right. He's the farm boy.
He's a farm boy, and
Yeah.
he gets taught about this greater world, and then he gets the call to action, and then he's kind of forced into it.
Right.
Very similar way that I have made this story as well, and that Ella is having that moment now herself,
Right.
and yeah, so we kind of start to understand it through her eyes.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I totally see that. Cool. So this campaign, like people can still support it, right?
Yep. So if you click on any of those ones that says go to the campaign, any of those buttons, if you scroll up, there we go. There it is.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, and
there's
I
a
put
whole
the
bunch of bundles and everything available. You can get hard covers, soft covers, catch up,
I love this cover,
digital.
man.
Thank you. Yeah.
Did a beautiful
I
job.
well, I've got these these are the like bande dessinée. These are the French books that
Oh,
I
okay.
really kind of was inspired by. I always wanted to do that, but that was always
Yeah.
just a pipe dream. How could I ever afford to produce something like that?
Yeah.
And then crowdfunding boomed, and I was like, well, if I ever want to make it happen, I've got to get involved in this. And thankfully, blessedly, I've been really fortunate in that field. Built a good YouTube channel and found an audience, and it's possible now. So yeah, it's really crazy that I can actually do that. So I thought, all right, well, if I'm gonna do it, I want to do like what they do in France, where they do these really cool painted. They
Yeah.
hire a lot of concept artists and stuff like that because they can do those
Yeah.
amazing landscapes. And I thought I can do this. So yeah, I really put everything I had into those two covers, and I look forward to doing the same. So I have like a really cool collection once all the books are done together.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's how the
amazing.
French do it, and I really really dig it.
Learn from the French.
Exactly.
This is awesome, man. I love the book.
Thank you.
Anxious for the next one.
I'm so it's I really truly believe that once we start getting into the story, people are going to really start gravitating towards it. The word of mouth has already been incredible. And we're only just getting started. Like you said, the first book is really kind of giving a glimpse of the
Yeah,
world,
it's just a hook.
and the possibilities. Just a hook.
It doesn't even feel like a
So
complete first act yet. It feels like we're just getting into it.
yeah, yeah, you're right. It isn't. It's sort of almost, it ends like, is that the end of the first act? No, maybe not. There's still a little bit kind of to go.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe I would say that the end of Painted Death is really the end of the first act, actually.
Okay.
Um, it actually, and it kind of, it does feel a bit more like a full story as well, than the first one did. So I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that as well. And yeah, because after then, the third book and onwards, yeah, she's in it at that point. She's been, she will have been sort of tested for the first time, in this crazy world, and she will be like well and truly ensconced in everything. Because if you look at it from her perspective, she was just putting books on a shelf at her day
Yeah.
job,
Right.
that day, and now her whole world has just been completely turned upside down. And it's not only her world either, the whole world. When you learn about, if you were in her shoes and you'd learn, oh, this whole hidden world exists and I'm somehow intimately involved, yeah, it's not as if your whole world is being turned upside down. It's like the world has turned
Right.
upside down around you, and everything you thought your life was turns out, no, it's something completely different. So it's exciting. I really do. I wouldn't be sinking every single minute of my spare time into this story if I didn't think, it's really something special.
Yeah, it definitely is. I can tell already. I feel like we're just on the cusp of something big about to break open with these stories.
I hope so. And like I said, when I used to put it on Webtoons, people had read a little bit more than what you have. Uh, that's what really encouraged me to go forward, because I would get similar comments of people saying, I've been reading graphic novels for 30 years, and this is something really special. So please continue with this. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I've got something here. And I knew I did, because, like I said, I've read, and you can't see it here, but I got two bookshelves here, I got a bookshelf full there, bookshelves at home. I've read so many books, and I love that feeling you get when the story is really working, a great story. And I felt the same thing with this story. So it's like, okay, I'm onto something here.
Yeah.
Got to keep going.
Oh, definitely. Genuine Comment says the problem is that the craft of writing is not taken seriously. Very true. Very true. It's almost like a means to an end just to get a book out. You just write whatever to
Yeah,
get the story out.
yeah, in comics especially, which is funny because a lot of times it's the writer, at least in the mainstream, are touted as the big selling point,
Yeah.
but then the writing doesn't live up to, uh, what's being sold, and then yeah, it's kind of like a feedback loop. Um, but I'm I'm liking that there are people out there, and I include myself in that group, who are trying to take graphic novel or comic book writing as seriously as it should be. And when I say serious, I mean like we should be trying to write amazing stories that capture
Yeah.
the imagination of readers, and stories that are kind of new too. I feel like I'm writing a story, even though there's lots of elements that people have, in the story that people have seen before. I genuinely feel like the world that I've built is something that people haven't read about before.
Right.
It's a new take on things that they might be familiar with, and yeah, I'd love to see more stuff like that because I love reading it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, we're just hit an hour. Any last minute advice you would give to an upcoming writer?
Yeah, write a lot. Write a lot, and then read what you've written as objectively as you can. Uh, I know, Carl. He says Mike sounds like he's an old radio station. I don't know what it is. I checked and double checked. All my settings are right. I don't know what it is. I might just have to restart my computer. I
It's the
apologize for the
gremlins.
bad audio. Um, but here's what I do. This is my final parting advice. Whatever I write, I shelve it. I put it away. I let it sit there until, and it doesn't matter how long it takes for me, it's usually a couple of months. I want to forget what I've written.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I wrote that scene, but I don't want to remember what was written in it. And then when I reread it, then I can read it more as a reader. So, and you're much more objective
Yeah.
than than uh, than if you just kind of write and then reread and everything. So that's a piece of advice that has worked for me time and time again. Try to if you're on a deadline, I guess that's probably hard, but most indie writers aren't. So yeah, just shelve it for a bit, come back to it later, and you'll be able to see um, what works and what doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I see with fresh eyes. Yeah,
Yeah.
going back to what genuine comics said, though, I think part of the thing is like people want to get their IPs out there, they want to get their characters out there, but they don't take that time uh, to set it aside and look at it again with fresh eyes. And if you don't want to do that, then get an editor. I mean that.
Yeah. No,
I mean
you got to
that's
do that. You
yeah,
have to do that. Yeah. Don't rush it. Don't. Yeah. Just don't feel like you have to pump stuff out.
right.
Um, you have to, if you're one of those writers who's like a real, like a pulp writer who's written 100 novels, yeah, you could probably do that. You know your craft, but I don't think most of us are in that boat
Yeah.
just yet. Anyway.
Especially as an artist, I think people we come up with ideas and we just want to get that idea out there and we
Hmm.
want to sell people on the idea when we don't
Yeah.
even have the story yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good stuff. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about writing. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's good stuff,
I
man.
love it. Thank you so much for the invite. I could talk about writing and I could especially talk about the Lucent all day long. So thank you
Yeah.
very much for the invite.
Oh, I love the little in depth backstory into how you created it and how you came up with the idea. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend.
Bye.